I'm 37 years old and my family just found out I'm not the pathetic loser they thought I was. The panic in their voices through my apartment door is almost worth the 15 years of humiliation I've endured. Almost. Let me back up. My dad, Randy, retired last Saturday after 40 years at a manufacturing plant. Big party, catered event, the whole deal. I wasn't invited. Found out about it when my cousin Evan posted photos on Instagram 3 days before. The venue was this nice hotel ballroom downtown, maybe 200 people. I called my mom, Gail, to ask why I didn't get an invitation, and she actually laughed. Told me they weren't sure I could afford the gas money to drive there, and they didn't want me embarrassing them by asking guests for money. She said this like it was the most reasonable thing in the world. Here's what you need to understand about my family. I'm the youngest of 3 sons. My oldest brother Henry runs a car dealership. Middle brother Joel works in real estate. Both married, both have kids, both make decent money. Then there's me. I never went to college because I spent my early 20s taking care of my grandmother, Anita, when she had cancer. The family needed someone to do it, and I was the obvious choice since I wasn't doing anything important with my life anyway. That's actually what my dad said when we discussed it. I moved into her place, did her medications, drove her to appointments, cooked her meals. She died when I was 26. After that, I couldn't really figure out what to do with myself. Started doing delivery work because it was flexible and I needed money. My family decided this meant I was a failure. Every family gathering became an opportunity to remind me that I was wasting my life. My brothers would talk about their quarterly earnings while I sat there. My mom would introduce me to people as her son who never quite found his direction. My dad stopped asking me about work altogether. 3 years ago, something changed. Dad was talking about retirement planning at Christmas dinner. He was worried about money. The plant had cut their pension contributions, and he was looking at maybe 60% of what he'd expected. My mom was anxious about their mortgage. They'd refinanced twice and still had 15 years left on payments. Henry suggested they sell the house and downsize, but Mom refused. That house was her identity in the neighborhood. I offered to help. I told them I'd been saving money and I could contribute to their mortgage payments. My dad looked at me like I'd offered him monopoly money. He actually said, "Where would you get real money from your DoorDash tips?" The whole table laughed, but I was serious. I'd been putting away money for years. Not a lot at first, but it added up. I'd been living cheap, way below my means, in a basement apartment that cost me next to nothing. I'd been investing small amounts consistently. I had money, more than they thought. But they didn't want my help. Dad told me he'd rather take a second mortgage than take money from his son who delivered Chinese food for a living. I stopped offering after that, and I stopped going to family events unless absolutely necessary. They'd still call me when they needed something, though. Joel needed help moving furniture. Henry needed someone to dog sit for a week. Mom needed rides to doctor appointments when Dad was working. I did these things because they were family. So when I found out about Dad's retirement party, I decided I was done being invisible. I bought him a gift, a nice one, a vintage watch from an estate sale, probably worth $1,500. I had it cleaned and serviced, put it in a good presentation box. I drove to that hotel on Saturday night and walked into that ballroom with my gift. The place went quiet when I came in. Not immediately, but in this spreading wave as people noticed me. I was wearing my regular clothes, jeans, and a jacket because I wasn't trying to impress anyone. I just wanted to give my dad his gift. I found him near the bar talking to his old coworker. He saw me coming and his face did this thing where he looked confused and then angry. Dad said, "What the hell are you doing here?" loud enough that people nearby stopped their conversations. I told him I wanted to give him a retirement gift. I held out the box. He didn't take it. He looked around at his friends and then back at me. He said, "Holy crap, the loser actually came. Somebody should call security." People laughed. I thought maybe he was joking at first, but his face was serious. My mom appeared out of nowhere. She grabbed a microphone from the DJ booth. I don't know why the DJ gave it to her. She said this into the microphone, to the entire room. "That's our son. 37 years old, no job, no woman, no future. Just thought everyone should know who just walked in." The room went completely silent. I stood there holding this box. My brother Joel pushed through the crowd and got in my face. He said, "You still owe me $300 from Christmas." Deadbeat. I'd borrowed money from him 2 years ago for car repairs and paid him back within a month, but I guess he'd decided I hadn't. My uncle on Dad's side started laughing and told everyone I made less than minimum wage doing delivery work. My Aunt Celeste, Dad's sister, announced that I lived in a basement apartment with roaches and she'd seen pictures. I don't have roaches. I've never had roaches. One of Dad's co-workers asked if I was the one who got rejected from a retail job. Dad nodded and said 3 times. That wasn't true. I'd never applied to work retail, but he said it like it was a well-known fact. Mom added that they'd been telling people I was traveling in Europe because it was better than admitting I existed. My cousin Evan yelled that even homeless people had more pride than me. I set the gift down on the nearest table. I looked at my dad and told him happy retirement. Then I walked out. Nobody followed me. Nobody apologized. I heard them laughing as I left. I went home and sat in my apartment. I didn't feel sad exactly. I felt clear, like something I'd been waiting for had finally happened. I'd spent years thinking maybe they'd eventually see me differently. Maybe they'd realize I wasn't a failure, but they'd made their position obvious. They wanted me to be the family embarrassment. It gave them someone to feel superior to. Here's what they don't know. I'm not broke. That basement apartment I live in, I own the building. Bought it 7 years ago as an investment property. I live in the basement unit because it saves money, and the other 3 units generate income. I have investments. Not a fortune, but enough that I haven't needed to worry about money in years. The delivery work is something I do because I like driving and listening to podcasts and not having a boss. It's not my identity. It's just a job. I also have something else they don't know about. When my grandmother died, she left me her house. My parents assumed she'd left everything to my dad since he was her only child. But she'd changed her will during the last year of her life. She told me she was doing it, but I never mentioned it to anyone. The house was paid off. I sold it and invested the money. That's where my real financial foundation came from. My family has no idea. Sunday morning, I woke up to text from Joel asking why I was trying to ruin Dad's night. Nothing from my parents. Nothing from Henry. I didn't respond. I went about my day, did some deliveries, came home, watched TV, went to bed around 11. At 4 in the morning, I woke up to pounding on my apartment door. Loud, desperate pounding. Then voices. Multiple voices. My dad yelling my name. My mom sobbing. Joel saying, please, please open the door. I got up and looked through the peephole. My entire family was in the hallway. Mom, Dad, both brothers, my aunt, my uncle, all of them. Mom was crying hard like someone had died. Dad's face was red and panicked. They were saying they were sorry, saying they were joking, saying I was family, saying please God make it stop. Make what stop? I had no idea. I didn't open the door. I stood there watching them through the peephole. My dad pounded on the door again and yelled out that they needed to talk to me right now. It was an emergency. They were sorry for everything, but I had to let them in. I went back to bed. The pounding continued for maybe 20 minutes. Then it stopped. I checked the peephole again and the hallway was empty. I got back in bed but couldn't sleep. My phone was blowing up with texts and calls, all from family members, all saying the same things. We're sorry. We need to talk. Please answer. It's important. We were wrong. Please? I turned my phone off and went back to sleep. When I woke up at 9, I turned my phone back on. 63 missed calls, 42 text messages, 3 voicemails. I listened to one voicemail. It was my mom begging me to call her back, saying they needed my help desperately, saying she'd do anything. I still haven't called them back. It's been 2 days. They keep trying. They showed up at my building again Monday night. I didn't answer. They tried calling my landlord until they realized I am the landlord. They don't know what to do now. And I'm sitting here trying to figure out what they want from me so badly that they'd spend hours pounding on my door at 4 a.m. Update 1. Okay, so the comments on my last post were insane. Some of you guessed correctly. Some of you were way off. A few of you told me I should just forgive them because they're family, and honestly, respectfully, those comments made me laugh. You don't humiliate someone for 15 years and then get forgiveness because you need something. I need to back up a bit and explain something I didn't mention before. When my grandmother Anita died and left me her house, there was something else in the will. She had a life insurance policy. Nothing massive, but it was specifically designated for her final expenses, and anything left over was supposed to go to my dad. Except she'd changed the beneficiary to me about 6 months before she died. I found out when the insurance company contacted me. It was $48,000 after they paid out her funeral costs and remaining medical bills. My dad was expecting that money. He'd been counting on it. When he found out I got it instead, he was furious. He called me and said I needed to do the right thing and give him that money since it was clearly meant for him as her son. I told him the policy had my name on it and that was Grandma's choice, not mine. He said I'd obviously manipulated her when she was sick and weak, said I'd taken advantage of her trust. My mom got on the phone and cried about how disrespectful I was being to my father. How could I keep money that should have been his? I told them I wasn't giving them anything, and if they kept harassing me about it, I'd stop taking their calls. They backed off eventually, but it damaged things permanently. That was 11 years ago. They've brought it up maybe a dozen times since then in various ways. Usually when they're mad at me about something else, you stole from your own father. You manipulated a dying woman. You're a thief. I never responded to it. Just let them say what they wanted to say. So Tuesday morning, I'm at home and my phone starts ringing at 7 a.m. It's Joel. I don't answer. He calls back immediately. Then Henry calls. Then my dad. Then my mom. This goes on for 10 minutes straight, just rotating through the four of them. I finally answer when Joel calls for the fourth time. He's talking fast, overlapping his words. Says they need to meet with me today, right now if possible. It's extremely important and they're sorry about everything that happened at the party. I ask him what this is about. He says they need to discuss it in person. I tell him no. If he wants to talk to me, he can do it right now on the phone or not at all. There's silence. Then I hear him talking to someone else. Sounds like he's covering the phone. When he comes back, he says fine, they'll explain. He tells me my parents are in serious financial trouble. They got behind on their mortgage payments during the pandemic and never caught up. They've been making partial payments for 3 years, trying to get current, but the bank's patience has run out. They're facing foreclosure. They have 90 days to pay $26,000 or they lose the house. I don't say anything. Joel keeps talking. Says mom and dad are devastated. Says they've tried everything. They applied for a loan modification but got denied. They looked into a reverse mortgage but don't qualify because of the existing debt. Henry offered to help, but he's got his own problems with the dealership. Joel's got issues with a bad real estate investment. Neither of them can come up with that kind of money right now. I ask why they think I can help. Joel actually laughs this bitter sound. Says they know I've got money. Says Aunt Celeste did some digging and found out I own my building. Says they looked up property records and saw I bought it for cash 7 years ago. Says they know about Grandma's life insurance money and her house, and they know I've been sitting on all of it while pretending to be poor. I tell Joel that's fascinating detective work, but I'm not sure why it concerns me. He gets frustrated. Says I'm their brother, their son. I can't just let them lose their house. I remind him that 4 days ago he called me a deadbeat in front of 200 people. He says he's sorry. They're all sorry. They were stupid and drunk and showing off. Says this is bigger than some dumb comments at a party. I ask him if Dad's sorry. Joel goes quiet again. Then I hear my dad's voice in the background telling Joel to give him the phone. My dad gets on, and his voice has this forced calm to it. Says we need to talk man to man about this situation. Says he knows there's been tension between us, but family has to help family. I ask him if he remembers what he said to me on Saturday. He says he already apologized for that. They all did. And we need to move past it. I tell him he didn't apologize. He showed up at my door at 4 in the morning panicking and begging, but he never actually said he was sorry for what he did. Dad says he's saying it now. He's sorry. They're all sorry. Now, can we please focus on the real problem here? I ask him what the real problem is. He says the real problem is his house, his mortgage, his financial situation that could have been avoided if I'd done the right thing years ago. This is where I start laughing. I can't help it. I ask him if he's seriously blaming me for his mortgage problems. He says if I'd given him that insurance money like I should have, he would have paid down his mortgage and wouldn't be in this position. He says I created this problem by keeping money that wasn't mine. I tell him that's an interesting perspective, but I'm going to pass on helping him. He starts yelling. Says I owe him. Says after everything they did for me, raising me, feeding me, putting a roof over my head for 18 years, this is how I repay them. I hang up. Joel calls back immediately. I don't answer. They call 17 more times over the next hour. I block all their numbers. Here's where it gets complicated. Tuesday afternoon, I'm out doing deliveries and I stop at a gas station. I'm filling up my car when Henry pulls into the spot next to me. This isn't a coincidence. He followed me. He gets out and walks over and starts talking before I can say anything. Henry tells me he understands I'm angry, but I need to think about Mom. Says she's not sleeping, she's barely eating, she's terrified of losing the house she's lived in for 30 years. Says this isn't about Dad or him or Joel. It's about our mother and whether I'm the kind of person who can watch her suffer. I tell Henry that Mom stood in front of 200 people and said she wished I didn't exist. Henry says she didn't mean it like that. I ask him how exactly she meant it then. He doesn't have an answer. I finish filling my tank. Henry follows me inside when I go to pay. He's still talking. Says they need an answer by Friday because that's when the bank needs the payment. Says they're asking me for a loan, not a gift. They'll pay me back over time with interest if I want. I ask him how they plan to pay me back when they can't even make their current mortgage payment. He says once they get current, they'll be fine. They just need help getting over this hurdle. I pay for my gas and walk back to my car. Henry grabs my arm. Not hard, just enough to stop me. He says I need to understand that if Mom and Dad lose this house, they're going to have to move in with one of us. Probably him since his house is biggest. Says his wife, Monica, is already stressed about it. Says this is going to affect everyone in the family, not just Mom and Dad. I pull my arm away and tell Henry that sounds like a family problem. He asks if I'm really not part of this family anymore. I tell him I stopped being part of this family when Dad called me a loser in front of everyone he's ever worked with. Henry says I'm being petty. Says this is people's lives and homes, and I'm acting like a child holding a grudge. I get in my car. Henry stands there looking defeated. As I'm pulling away, he shouts that they're going to figure this out without me and I'm going to regret not helping when I had the chance. I drive off. Wednesday, they try a different approach. My Aunt Celeste shows up at my building around 6 p.m. She knocks on my door. I look through the peephole and see her standing there with this apologetic expression. I don't open the door. She starts talking anyway, loud enough that I can hear through the door. She says she's not here on behalf of my parents. She's here as someone who cares about me. Says she knows they treated me terribly, and she's ashamed she participated. Says when she made that comment about roaches, she was drunk and trying to get laughs and it was cruel. Says she's genuinely sorry. I still don't open the door. She keeps talking. Celeste says she's worried about what this is doing to the family. Says my parents are desperate, and when people are desperate, they make bad decisions. Says my dad has been talking about taking out a predatory high-interest loan, and that's going to destroy them financially for the rest of their lives. Says if I could just loan them even half the money they need, it would buy them time to figure something else out. I open the door. Celeste looks relieved. I tell her I appreciate her coming here, but I'm not interested in helping people who spent 15 years making sure I knew how worthless they thought I was. She says they never thought I was worthless. They just didn't understand my choices. I ask her what choices exactly. The choice to take care of grandma while everyone else was too busy? The choice to live modestly and save money? The choice to not brag about my finances? Celeste doesn't have an answer. She says family is complicated and everyone makes mistakes. I tell her she's right, and their mistake was assuming I'd forget how they treated me. She tears up. Says she hopes I can find it in myself to forgive them someday. I close the door. Thursday morning, I get a text from a number I don't recognize. It's my mom using someone else's phone. She says she knows I blocked them, but she needs me to listen. Says they're going to lose everything. Says dad's pride is destroyed, and he's admitted he was wrong about me. Says he wants to apologize properly if I'll just meet with them. I don't respond. 10 minutes later, another text from a different number. It's dad. Says he's not too proud to beg. Says he'll get on his knees in front of me if that's what I want. Says name my terms. Whatever I need from him to make this right. I block both numbers. Thursday afternoon, Joel shows up at my building with his wife. I don't know her well. We've maybe spoken a dozen times in the years they've been married. She knocks on my door while Joel stands back. When I open it, she immediately starts crying. Says she's sorry for bothering me, but she's desperate. Says Joel's been having panic attacks about mom and dad losing their house. Says he feels responsible because he's the one who got them to refinance their mortgage 10 years ago, and now he thinks this is his fault. I tell her I'm sorry Joel's having panic attacks, but that's not my problem. She says, please, just consider it. Says they'll do anything. I ask her what anything means. She says whatever I want. Apologies, family therapy, Joel and Henry publicly admitting they were wrong about me. Whatever it takes. I tell her I'll think about it. She thanks me and leaves. I'm not going to help them. I want to be clear about that. I've spent years being their punching bag and their backup plan and their disappointment. I've watched them dismiss everything I did, mock every choice I made, and treat me like I was something embarrassing they had to tolerate. And now that they need me, now that I have something they want, they're willing to apologize, they're willing to admit they were wrong? It's not enough. It's not even close to enough. But watching them scramble is the most satisfaction I've felt in 15 years. Update 2. The comments telling me to stand my ground are giving me life right now. To the person who said my family sounds like they're from a reality TV show, you're not wrong. This week has been absolutely unhinged. Friday was the deadline Joel mentioned for the bank payment. I knew they'd try something big. What I didn't expect was getting ambushed at the grocery store at 10 in the morning. I'm in the produce section comparing apples when I look up and see my entire family walking toward me. Mom, Dad, both brothers, Henry's wife Monica, Joel's wife, even my cousin Evan. They spread out around me like they're trying to prevent me from leaving. The store isn't crowded, but there are enough people around that this is awkward for everyone. Dad starts talking immediately. Says they need 5 minutes of my time. I tell him I'm shopping. He says this can't wait any longer. Today's Friday, and they need an answer. I point out that I never agreed to give them an answer, and also they're making a scene. Mom starts crying. Real tears, not fake ones. Says she can't believe her own son would rather see them homeless than help them. I look at Henry and ask if he organized this little intervention. He admits he did. Says they decided the only way to get through to me was to have everyone here so I could see how serious this is. I ask him if he thought cornering me in public would make me more sympathetic to their cause. He says he thought it might make me actually listen. Joel jumps in. Says they've spent the last week trying to reach me individually, and I've shut everyone down. Says this is their last chance to make me understand what's at stake. I tell him I understand perfectly what's at stake. I just don't care. Monica, Henry's wife, gasps like I said something unforgivable. She tells me that's a horrible thing to say about my own parents. I turn to Monica and ask where she was on Saturday when her husband was calling me a deadbeat in front of 200 people. She goes quiet. I ask if she tried to stop him or if she just stood there laughing with everyone else. She admits she didn't think it was funny, but she didn't say anything because she didn't want to cause a scene. I tell her that's interesting because she seems fine with causing a scene right now when it benefits her. This is when things start breaking down. Dad tells Monica to stop talking and let him handle this. He looks at me and says they came here to make me a formal offer. If I loan them the $26,000, they'll pay me back over 10 years with 5% interest. They'll put it in writing, make it legal, whatever I want. I ask him why I would trust them to pay me back when they couldn't even make their mortgage payments. He says that's different. The pandemic destroyed their finances, and they're just now recovering. I point out that the pandemic ended years ago. Dad's face gets red. He says I don't understand how hard it's been for them. I remind him that I worked through the entire pandemic doing deliveries while people were terrified of catching the virus. And he never once asked me if I was okay. Joel interrupts and says that's not relevant to the current situation. I tell him everything is relevant because it shows exactly how much they've ever cared about me. Mom stops crying and her voice gets sharp. She says, fine, I want to talk about the past. Let's talk about it. Says they treated me the way they did because I was a disappointment. Says from the time I was 18, I made choices they couldn't be proud of. Skipping college, taking care of grandma instead of building a career, working jobs that embarrassed them when their friends asked what their youngest son was doing. Says every family gathering was painful because they had to explain why I wasn't like my brothers. I ask her if she's seriously blaming me for taking care of her dying mother. She says that's not what she means. I ask her what she means then. She says I could have arranged for professional care, could have still gone to school, could have done something other than just giving up on my own future. I tell her grandma couldn't afford professional care and nobody else in the family volunteered to pay for it. Dad says that's because they assumed I wanted to do it since I wasn't doing anything else important. Henry tries to redirect the conversation. Says we're getting off track and we need to focus on solving the immediate problem. I ask him what his immediate problem is since he's not the one losing a house. He admits his immediate problem is that Mom and Dad are probably going to have to move in with him and his wife is losing her mind over it. Monica shoots him a look but doesn't deny it. Joel adds that they're all going to be affected by this. Says if Mom and Dad lose the house, the family dynamics are going to be destroyed. Says holidays will be weird, get-togethers won't happen the same way, their kids won't have their grandparents' house to visit anymore. I tell him that sounds really sad, but I haven't been to a family holiday in 3 years, so it doesn't affect me. Evan, my cousin, says that's because I chose to isolate myself. I remind him he's the one who posted about the retirement party on Instagram without inviting me. He says he thought someone else had invited me. This goes on for 20 minutes. We're still standing in the produce section. Store employees are starting to watch us. Other customers are steering their carts around our group. Dad keeps trying to get the conversation back to the money. Mom keeps crying and then stopping and then starting again. The brothers and their wives keep contradicting each other about whose responsibility this is. Finally, I tell them I'll consider helping them under one condition. The whole group perks up. Dad asks what the condition is. I tell them they have to stand up at the next family gathering in front of everyone who was at the retirement party and publicly apologize for how they treated me. Not just say sorry, but specifically list everything they said and did. I want them to explain to all those people that they lied about me, that I'm not a loser, that I actually have money and property and they've been treating me like garbage for years despite knowing I could help them. The silence is amazing. Dad's face goes from hopeful to furious in about 3 seconds. He says, absolutely not. Says he's not going to humiliate himself in front of his friends and former coworkers. I tell him that's interesting because he had no problem humiliating me in front of those same people. He says that was different. I ask how. He doesn't answer. Mom says she'll do it. Says if that's what it takes, she'll apologize publicly. Dad tells her to be quiet. She turns on him and says maybe if he'd been less concerned with his pride, they wouldn't be in this situation. This kicks off an argument between my parents right there in the grocery store. Mom brings up the insurance money, says Dad's resentment about me getting it has poisoned the whole family. Dad says the insurance money should have been his, and I manipulated a dying woman to steal it. Mom says he has no proof of that and he needs to let it go. Henry tries to calm them down. Joel pulls me aside while our parents are arguing. He tells me the public apology thing isn't going to work, but maybe we can figure out something else. Says what if they write me a private letter apologizing for everything, and I can keep it as insurance? I ask him what good a letter does me. He says it's a gesture of good faith. I tell him I don't want their good faith, I want them to feel the way they made me feel. Joel gets frustrated. Ask me what I want from them. Public humiliation, groveling? Would that actually make me happy? I tell him yes, it actually would. He calls me petty, says he's starting to understand why they treated me the way they did. Says this vindictive streak explains a lot. I laugh. I tell him the vindictive streak started when I was 22 and spending my days changing adult diapers and crushing pills while he was closing real estate deals and Dad was telling people I was wasting my life. By now, store security has approached. They politely ask us to take our family discussion outside. We move to the parking lot. My parents are still arguing with each other. Mom is saying Dad's pride has cost them everything. Dad is saying if I wasn't such a selfish person, they wouldn't need to beg. Henry and Joel are trying to mediate. Monica is on her phone. Evan is just standing there, looking uncomfortable. I get in my car. Dad comes over and puts his hand on my door so I can't close it. He tells me this is my last chance. Says if I drive away now, they're done with me. I'll never be welcome in this family again. I ask him if I'm welcome now. He doesn't answer. I tell him to move his hand. He doesn't. I tell him again. He says not until I give him an answer. I start my car. He moves his hand. As I'm backing out, Mom runs up to my window. She's begging me to wait, saying we can work this out. Saying she'll do whatever I want. I drive away. I can see the whole group in my rearview mirror standing there in the parking lot. They look defeated. Saturday morning, I wake up to a series of texts from a number I don't know. It's Henry. He's asking if we can meet one-on-one. No parents, no Joel, just him and me. Says he wants to explain something about why things are the way they are. I tell him I'm not interested. He says it's about Dad and why he resents me so much. Says it goes back further than the insurance money. I agree to meet him. We meet at a park Sunday afternoon. Henry looks exhausted. He tells me Dad has always been resentful of me. Says it started when I was born because Dad wanted to be done having kids after Joel, but Mom wanted to try one more time for a daughter. Says when I turned out to be another boy, Dad felt trapped. Says he stayed in a job he hated because he needed the benefits and pension to support 3 kids instead of 2. I ask Henry why he's telling me this. He says because I should know that Dad's treatment of me was never really about my choices. It was about his own disappointment with his life. Says when Grandma got sick and I moved in to take care of her, Dad saw it as me taking the easy way out just like he did by staying in a job he didn't like. Says when Grandma left me the money, it confirmed everything Dad believed about me being selfish and opportunistic. I tell Henry that's fascinating psychological analysis, but it doesn't change anything. Henry says he knows. Says he just wanted me to understand that this isn't really about me. I tell him that makes it worse, not better. That I've spent 15 years being treated like garbage for something that had nothing to do with me. Henry admits he sees my point. Then he tells me something that changes everything. Says Mom and Dad took out a second mortgage 2 years ago. Says they needed money because Dad has a gambling problem. Online poker. He lost about $40,000 over the course of 8 months. That's why they're really behind on their house payments. It wasn't the pandemic. It was Dad betting money they didn't have and losing. I ask Henry why he's telling me this now. He says because I should know what I'm actually being asked to fund if I help them. Says the $26,000 isn't going to fix anything because Dad hasn't stopped gambling. Says he's tried to get him to stop, but Dad refuses to admit he has a problem. Says Mom knows, but she's in denial about how bad it is. This explains so much. The desperation, the panic, the way they showed up at 4 in the morning. They're not just losing their house. They're dealing with an addiction that's destroying them, and they thought I was their way out. I tell Henry I'm definitely not helping them now. He says he figured. Says he told me because he's tired of protecting Dad's secrets and he thinks I deserve to know the truth. I ask him if Mom and Dad know he's telling me this. He says no, and they'd be furious if they found out. Monday morning, I get a call from my dad. He's crying. Actually crying. Says the bank started foreclosure proceedings. Says they have 30 days to vacate the house. Says this is really happening and it's my fault. I hang up. That's where I'm at now. They have 30 days. Dad's got a gambling addiction nobody's addressing. Mom's in denial. My brothers are trying to distance themselves from the whole situation while still trying to guilt me into helping. And I'm sitting here with enough money to solve their immediate problem but absolutely no intention of doing it. Final update. The comments on my last post were split between people saying I should help them and people saying I should let them burn. For everyone who said I should help, I need you to understand something. I didn't just wake up one day and decide to be vindictive. I've been planning for this moment for 11 years. Since the day my dad told me he'd rather take a second mortgage than accept money from me. Since the day they made it clear that no matter what I did, I would always be the family failure in their eyes. The 30-day foreclosure timeline I mentioned? It moved faster than expected. Turns out when you're already months behind on payments and the bank has been patient for years, they don't mess around once foreclosure starts. By Wednesday of last week, the house was scheduled for auction, public auction. Anyone could bid on it. I found this out because Joel called me Tuesday night from yet another new number. He was panicking. Said the auction was happening Friday morning at the county courthouse. Said they'd tried everything to stop it, but the bank refused to negotiate anymore. Said mom was having panic attacks and dad had locked himself in their bedroom and wouldn't come out. Said they needed a miracle. I asked Joel if dad was still gambling. Long silence. Then Joel admitted he was. Said dad had lost another $3,000 in the last 2 weeks trying to win enough to save the house. Said it was completely out of control, and mom had finally accepted that dad needed help, but it was too late to do anything about it now. I asked Joel why he thought I'd want to fund a gambling addiction. He said I wouldn't be funding it. I'd be saving mom. I told him mom spent 15 years watching dad treat me like garbage and never once stood up for me. Joel said that's not fair. I said life's not fair, and hung up. Thursday morning, Henry shows up at my building again. I see him through the peephole, and this time I open the door because I want to hear what he has to say. He looks worse than he did at the park. He tells me he needs to show me something. He hands me his phone. It's a video. I press play. It's mom and dad in their living room. Someone's recording them, probably Henry. Mom is sitting on the couch crying and dad is standing by the window. Henry's voice in the video asks dad to say what he told Henry to say. Dad turns around and he looks broken. He says he's sorry for how he treated me. Says he knows he destroyed our relationship and he knows I have no reason to help him. Says he has a problem and he's finally admitting it. Says if I help them keep the house, he'll go to therapy, he'll get treatment, he'll do whatever it takes. I hand the phone back to Henry. Tell him it's a nice video, but it doesn't change anything. Henry says he figured I'd say that. He asks me what it would take. I tell him there's nothing they can do at this point that would make me help them. He asks if I'm really going to let them lose everything over pride. I tell him it's not about pride, it's about consequences. People spend years treating you a certain way. They get to live with the results. Henry tells me I'm making a mistake. Says I'm going to regret this when they're actually homeless. Says family is supposed to forgive each other. I ask him if he'd forgive someone who publicly humiliated him in front of everyone he knew. He doesn't answer. I close the door. Friday morning, I drive to the courthouse. The auction is at 10. I get there at 9:30 and there are already people waiting. Real estate investors mostly, looking for deals. I register to bid. The clerk asks me if I'm familiar with how foreclosure auctions work. I tell her I am. At exactly 10, the auction starts. The auctioneer lists the property. My parents' house. 3-bedroom, 2-bath, built in 1987, needs updating but solid structure. Starting bid is the amount owed to the bank plus fees, $29,000. The auctioneer asks for opening bids. I bid $29,000. Someone else bids $30,000. I bid $32,000. They bid $34,000. This goes on for about 5 minutes. We get to $42,000. The other bidder drops out. The auctioneer asks if there are any other bids. Silence. He counts down. Going once. Going twice. Sold to me for $42,000. I own my parents' house now. The house I grew up in. The house they've lived in for 30 years. The house my mom said defined her identity in the neighborhood. It's mine. The eviction notice period is 10 days. They have until the following Monday to vacate. I know this because I looked it up months ago. I've known the foreclosure was coming since Joel accidentally mentioned it at Christmas when he'd had too much wine. I've been watching the mortgage records online. I've been waiting for this. Saturday afternoon, my phone starts exploding. Henry found out I bought the house. I don't know how, but he did. He calls me screaming, says I'm a monster, says buying their house out from under them is the cruelest thing he's ever heard of. Says what kind of person does that to their own family. I tell him the kind of person who got called a loser in front of 200 people. He hangs up. Joel calls next. He's not screaming. He's begging. Says please don't do this. Says there has to be another way. Says I can evict them, but where are they supposed to go? I tell him that's not my problem. He says I'm destroying the family. I tell him the family destroyed itself a long time ago. My dad calls. He's not crying this time. He's angry. Says I'm vindictive and cruel and he's ashamed I'm his son. Says I'm worse than he ever imagined. Says keeping the insurance money was one thing, but this is unforgivable. I ask him if he remembers what he said to me at his retirement party. He says that was a joke and I need to get over it. I tell him I am over it. I'm just making sure he experiences the same level of humiliation he gave me. He starts yelling. I hang up. Sunday evening, they all show up at my building. All of them. Mom, Dad, both brothers and their wives, Aunt Celeste, Uncle who laughed at the party, Cousin Evan. They're pounding on the door. It's 8 p.m. They're loud enough that my upstairs tenant texts me asking if everything's okay. I text back that it's fine, just family drama. I look through the peephole. Mom is sobbing. Dad is red-faced and yelling. Joel is trying to calm everyone down. Henry is pounding on the door. They're all talking over each other. I can hear bits of what they're saying. Please, we're sorry. You can't do this, we're family. This is too far. Please, God, just talk to us. This goes on for 45 minutes. I sit on my couch and listen. I pour myself a drink. I watch TV with the volume up. Eventually, they leave. Monday morning, I get a text from my mom's phone. She says they're not leaving the house. Says I can try to evict them, but they're not going without a fight. Says she's lived there for 30 years, and I can't just take that away from her. I text back that actually, I can, because I own the house now, and if they're not out by the deadline, I'll have the sheriff remove them. She texts back that I'm a horrible person. I don't respond. Tuesday, they try a different strategy. Aunt Celeste calls me. Says she'll pay me $50,000 for the house. I tell her it's not for sale. She says she'll pay $60,000. I tell her again it's not for sale. She asks what I'm planning to do with it. I tell her I haven't decided yet. Maybe I'll rent it out. Maybe I'll sell it to someone else. Maybe I'll let it sit empty. She calls me evil and hangs up. Wednesday morning, I drive past the house. There are cars in the driveway. They're still there. I park down the street and watch for a few minutes. I see Dad come out to get the mail. He looks like he's aged 10 years in 2 weeks. He sees my car. He walks toward me. I start the engine and drive away. Thursday morning, Joel shows up at my building with a new proposal. Says, what if they pay me rent to live there? Says they can't afford much, but they'll pay whatever they can. I ask him where they're going to get rent money when they couldn't make mortgage payments. He says they'll figure it out. Says Dad promised to stop gambling. Says they're all going to chip in. I tell him no. He asks why. I tell him because I don't want them living in my house. He says I'm being irrational. I close the door. Friday is the deadline. I drive to the house at 9 a.m. There's a moving truck in the driveway. They're actually moving out. I park across the street and watch. Henry and Joel are carrying boxes. Monica is directing where things go in the truck. Mom is standing on the front lawn looking at the house. Dad is nowhere visible. I get out of my car and walk over. Henry sees me first. He tells me to leave. I tell him I'm checking on my property. He says they're moving out. Isn't that what I wanted? I tell him I wanted them to understand how it feels to lose everything because of someone else's cruelty. Henry says, congratulations. They understand now. Am I happy? I tell him I'm getting there. Mom sees me. She walks over. Her face is blotchy from crying, but she's not crying now. She asks me if I'm satisfied. I ask her if she remembers telling 200 people she wished I didn't exist. She says she was drunk and embarrassed and she didn't mean it. I tell her she's had 15 years to not mean it, and she said it anyway. She slaps me, hard, across the face. Joel has to pull her away. Dad comes out of the house. He's carrying a box. He sees me and drops it. The box breaks open and stuff spills everywhere. He doesn't pick it up. He walks toward me, and for a second I think he's going to hit me, but he stops a few feet away. He says I'm dead to him. Says as far as he's concerned, he only has 2 sons now. Says he never wants to see me or hear from me again. I tell him that's been true for 15 years. He's just finally saying it out loud. He turns around and goes back in the house. They finish loading the truck by noon. I stay and watch the whole thing. Henry keeps glaring at me. Joel won't look at me at all. Monica tells me I should be ashamed of myself. Evan says I'm going to regret this someday. Aunt Celeste just shakes her head. Mom is the last one to leave. She stands at the front door for a long time just looking at the house. Then she gets in Henry's car and they drive away. The moving truck follows. I wait until they're gone and then I walk up to the house. I use my key to go inside. It's empty. They took everything. The place echoes. I walk through the rooms. This was my childhood home. I spent 18 years here. Now it's mine again, but it's just empty rooms and old memories. I lock up and leave. I drive home. My phone is blowing up with messages. Family members I haven't heard from in years telling me what a terrible person I am. Friends of my parents saying they can't believe what I did. Joel texting that Mom and Dad are staying with him temporarily, and his wife is furious and it's all my fault. I block all the numbers. I sit in my apartment. It's quiet. No pounding on the door. No desperate phone calls. No one begging me for anything. This is what I wanted. For them to feel what I felt. For them to lose something important because someone they trusted decided they weren't worth protecting. For them to stand outside my door at 4 a.m. sobbing and begging and getting nothing back. And I got it. I won. They lost their house. They lost their dignity. They lost their sense of security. Dad's gambling problem is now public knowledge in the family. Mom's perfect neighborhood image is destroyed. My brothers have to deal with the fallout. Everyone knows I had the money to help and chose not to. Everyone knows they're living with the consequences of 15 years of treating me like I was worthless. Some of you are going to say I went too far, that I should have been the bigger person. That family is family, and you're supposed to forgive. But here's what I learned from my family. People will treat you exactly as badly as you let them. And when you finally stop letting them, when you finally make them face consequences, they'll call you the villain. They'll say you're cruel and vindictive and heartless. They'll tell everyone who'll listen that you're the problem, and maybe I am. Maybe buying their house and evicting them makes me as bad as they say. But at least now when I look in the mirror, I see someone who doesn't accept being treated like garbage anymore. I see someone who made them pay for 15 years of humiliation. I see someone who finally put himself first. The house is mine. They're gone. And I'm not sorry.